You hear that? You hear that noise right now? Part of what makes my job exciting and challenging and difficult and quite frankly pretty messy is the fact that I have a farm, a brewery, and a distillery. And the brewery and the distillery have waste streams. The brewery in the form more often as brewer's grains, spent brewer's grains, which I've talked about in the past. In the distillery, it's so challenging to talk over this sloppy mess right here. See this stream right there? That's what we're talking about. So the distillery makes whole fruit brandies with pears, with apples, with cherries. It's really amazing. Apple brandy, pear brandy. And part of their waste stream, to get rid of that stuff, I add it into my compost pile. I have a way of doing it. Is it the best? I don't know. But that's what this video is about, because that's what I've spent today working on. I had to move away because now I can hear myself think. We're out by my compost area towards the back of the farm. It's accessible, even though I have a very wet property. This area stays fairly dry. I can turn the compost, try to stay on top of the things as time allows. And yeah, manage our compost, which then goes back either onto the fields, into the hop yard, which I keep gesturing to over in that direction because it's behind the camera, but you can't see that. And so today I went out for a trip. I actually spent 2 days doing this, where I picked up pear mash, which essentially, if you take pears, you mash them all up, then you got this pear mushy liquid stuff, and then you add a yeast to it. It ferments the sugars in the pears, the natural sugars, and then becomes an alcoholic pear slime. And then you take your alcoholic pear slime and you distill it. You run it through our still, where you're boiling it and you're taking the alcohols, which the vapors come off at different temperatures, and then you're taking cuts of those. And it's a very technical process, only half of which I understand. But they make some awesome brandies from it, and then I get the slop afterwards, which is great. So then I take this goop, which is, you know, I wouldn't necessarily handle unless I had a distillery, but because I got a distillery, we're going to handle it here on farm. And if you think about what is in this slop, it's you know, it starts out with sugars and proteins and fiber, and then you're fermenting all those sugars out for the alcohol and then turning that into brandy. So what you're left with is some protein and fiber and maybe some vitamins, but it's a sterile thing. It's not gross because it's been boiled. You know, they had to boil it, or they fermented it and then boiled it to get the alcohols out of it. So I have this sterile, protein-rich, probably nitrogen-rich liquid product that I want to add into my compost. Now, I want to dry it out a little bit. What I'm doing right now, and here's my system, is that I'm combining it with the brewer's grain, and then as I mix that slurry together, I'll mix that with wood chips, which are coarse and dry and fluffy, and I'll add more wood chips because this is now real soggy and wet, and just kind of play with my ratios and see how I can do all of this stuff. I have a unique situation where I have the brewery and the distillery, and you know, it's not something you normally do on farm, but because I have those operations and they have this waste stream, and we haven't found a good way other than composting it here on farm to get rid of this stuff, otherwise it ends up in a landfill, so I might as well try and manage it. I play with it here, you know, do some stuff. So the rest of this video, the process of like how I spend my day, and that's going to become important in the conversation in the months to come because of one reason. I'm having trouble balancing everything on farm for myself and for the farm itself, but I have these other operations who are doing really well, and we're trying to fit in agriculture into this three-part system, and it's very complicated. Some things may work, some things may not, but hell, we're trying it, we're seeing if it works, and let's go on to what my day was like today. So these trips just about consume my entire day. The day starts earlier, where I've either the night before or super early in the morning, I set up the truck with one 250 to 300 gallon tote in the back of the truck, and then 3 totes in my trailer here. This trailer is rated up to 12,000 pounds. I don't want to go near that. The truck is rated to tow 10,000 pounds. I don't want to go near that because the truck has 135,000 miles on it. So what I do is shy underneath that in the 6,000 to 8,000 pound range is fairly safe for me. And I do all those calculations out based on what the distillery's capacity is, how much pear stuff I'm going to get, how much I can hold in these totes, both volume and weight-wise, and figure it all out. I've done my homework on how much the truck can pull, how much the trailer can pull, and then over 10,000 pounds of towing, you have to get a special license in the state of Connecticut. So I don't want to go over that because I don't want a special license. Everything has to be by the rules, by the law. I don't want a new transmission. I don't want a traffic ticket. I don't want my vehicle confiscated or towed. All of these things, all that homework goes into just taking out the trash, doing some compost. So all that's taken care of. I have these IBC totes, which are big plastic totes that you can get off of Craigslist, or we're a beverage manufacturing company as well as a farm, so we just happen to have some of them. Fill up the totes, drive an hour and a half to the distillery, a little over an hour and a half. I drive slower with the truck and the trailer. Fill up everything, spend some time with the distillery guys. They're adorable. They're super intelligent. They're great partners. I hope they never see this video. And then once I've filled up, I take my now loaded vehicle and drive over 2 hours on the way back, because max speed I can hit on the highway is like 55, 60 miles an hour. Maybe if I'm going downhill, a little slower uphill. I don't want to tax the engine too much. It's an older truck. I never pedal to the metal. Just want to kind of finesse it and just ride her home nice and slow. So then I get to the farm, and then I unload everything in reverse order. I've set everything up so that the valves on the bottoms of the tanks are facing outwards. If I come in with the tractor, the valve is there, then I can drive it to my compost pile, and the valve is sticking out and not pointed in towards the tractor. All these little tiny details make a huge difference when you're doing these kind of trips. And then empty it out, let it kind of chill for a day or two, and then take my excavator in there and turn everything up and manage it so it's just not a big stinky mess that's just sitting there in the sunlight. Why this is all important in the context of this channel, I mean, this is not something I would recommend if you were a farm and you were managing compost, to seek out distillers, and it's not the greatest additive. It's super wet. You're adding sludge to your, it's pears, it's just spent pears, but you're adding sludge to your compost pile, which doesn't like to be super, super wet. Moist, yes. Wet, no. So why I have this? Because with the farm, my responsibilities, if you think about just all the elements that go into this, I have the trailer, I have the truck. The trailer has independent brakes from the truck that have a remote controller inside of the truck. So then you have to feel how the weight in the trailer is affecting those brakes, and you're braking in the truck, and you adjust that remote based on how you feel everything is going and based on your calculated weight. Also calculating out the weight and how you're running the truck. Now you just have those two vehicles, and then you get to the tractor part of it, where some of these totes, if you figure round numbers, the sludge, if you're taking the same weight as water, is about 8 pounds per gallon. It's actually a little bit more. It's like 8.6 pounds per gallon. We'll just say 8 pounds per gallon. And if these are 250 gallons, rough numbers again here, that's 8 times 250. That's what? 2,000 pounds. Yeah, right. 2,000 pounds. So 2,000 pounds, you have to be able to lift that with the machine. Maybe they're 300 gallons instead of 250 at times. So that's, 2,400 pounds or whatever the math is. Lift it, bring it off, and transport it around while being able to operate the tractor in a safe way, and then maneuver it in your compost area, which can have some unlevel ground. Now you're using several different types of vehicles. You're dealing with excess weight, fluids, traffic, and all this stuff. It's you just have to know a few things and be all right and be able to back up. Also, backing up into the distillery is like a nightmare because it's on a main street and you're backing up and down a hill, and oh, it's terrible. So managing all of these things, you kind of want to have somebody who's an expert, or at least knows what they're doing. And it's not something we do regularly or often enough where we would hire somebody full-time to do these trips. So having a farm to dispose of this waste, which you couldn't otherwise dispose of, which means we couldn't otherwise make pear brandy, which is part of our offering for distillates, and being able to use that and effectively recycle all that. It's just a thing. It's a thing to manage. And while it doesn't make the farm any money, it makes the whole company money. So it's one of those things that I have to balance in my decision making and time allocation and prioritization of, this is a thing that I got to do. I got to get it done. It takes time to prep the truck and the trailer, to unload and reload all of this stuff, and the driving time and the management time, and then the compost time. That all that stuff doesn't directly make money for the farm. I can charge to the distillery, but at the end of the day, it's all going in the same pot. We can have an internal transaction, but as I further define my values through the Fix My Farm series, this is one of those things that I've just kind of been piecing apart and saying, you know, what am I doing here? How much value is it adding to the company? What is it taking away from the farm? What does it add to the farm? What does it add to our story? And just kind of balance all the pieces. So if I have you confused now with my quick speaking, yeah, no, I get a little confused in stuff by this too. You know, I spend time thinking about it. A lot of time. Actually, all that time sitting on the road, you know, driving from place to place. So that's it. That's my day. I spent some days doing this. I spent some days fixing stuff for the brewery, all stuff that takes me off farm, but stuff that I wouldn't trade up because of the opportunities that it affords me being very closely knit with these other two businesses. This further builds out the story for Fix My Farm. If you want the Fix My Farm story, you can go to fixmy.farm or just go to Farm Marketing Solutions. It's easy to find. It's the stuff I've been talking about on my blog these days. And then how do I wrap this up? Thanks for watching the video. I hope this was at least mildly interesting, and until next time, I will see you out in the field or the compost pile.